return to MLW, big news for you personally. Uh, what what kind of motivated you to come back to MLW? I know you left, tested free agency, had a little spell in TNA, but what kind of made this the right move for you?
Oh, well, me and Court maintained a relationship even once I left the company,
Mhm.
and continued to kind of stay in touch over the course of that year I was with TNA, and so the way it kind of lined up was my contract came to an end, and right around the corner, Battle Riot was going to be in LA. He kind of put those feelers out, like this seems like a perfect thing. Like it's lining up. We'd love to have you back. We have nothing but respect for you. I told him I needed some time, and eventually we got on the phone and started talking about some ideas and what it could potentially look like. And we were just on the same page with everything. As far as you know, when it comes to presentation and how we want to tell stories and how involved I'm going to be in the process and what kind of opponent you know, um, even when it comes down to, you know, what kind of commitments we're locking in, like we are very much on the same page of like what I needed at the time. So
Mhm.
it got to the point where I was like, okay, this is a no brainer.
Yeah, and you just mentioned something that I will go back to, but as far as the timing lining up, like I know you, and I'll say you did a pretty good interview with Sports Illustrated with Zach Haydorn over there about kind of how you felt about why things kind of sort of went on the decline with TNA. What, and I know you signed in February 2024. Was it always a 1 year contract, or like were you supposed to stay longer? Because I know you were out with an injury, or can you talk about how you guys came to the conclusion that you weren't going to stay there?
It was what's the way that the contracts work is it's something like a 2 year, but it's basically like they have the option to take the second year.
Mhm.
And if they take that second year, sometimes there's different stipulations as far as like, I'm guaranteed a raise for the second year, or things like that, and right when that second year was coming up, I got a call and got talked on the phone, and just, it's just not going to work out.
Mhm. So the thing I wanted to go back to was you mentioned, being on the same page and having a relationship with court and stuff like this. Uh, the way you kind of explained it kind of reminds me of the way that Dijak explained how he started talking to court and getting things going as far as uh, just his role in the company, expectations. Did you have any like how in depth did you get as far as like creatively speaking, like stuff you want to do for yourself, how it fits in with the company? Like was any of that discussed, or was it kind of like, well, we have a relationship, people know you have a history in MLW. Let's kind of build off of that. Or was it any kind of creative stuff that you wanted to maybe like try out in this latest run?
I mean, it was nothing specific. It was more just, like I want to feel excited about what I'm doing creatively. I want to have a direction and be able to contribute to that direction. If anything, Court's always begging me to chime in more. Like, because I'm not the type of guy to be like, hey, you know what? Here, I need to win this match. I need to do it this way. I'm never thinking about like, oh, what's gonna make me the coolest. I'm thinking about like what's gonna create the best long term storytelling. But like, if I do have an idea, I want to be able to chime in. But the thing is, like, I want you to show me the destination, and I want to be able to choose what path I take to get there.
Mhm.
So it's like I don't want to choose like, hey, I get to end up here, 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 and here, and we're gonna do it this way. But like if you're saying, hey, here's where we want to end up with you, and here's the path we had in mind, I want to say, okay, well, can I take this? Can I take this shortcut or whatever it is? Like that's kind of my thought process on the whole thing.
Mhm.
Um, because I was coming out of a situation where sometimes the creative was like, "Hey, so I noticed we're doing this tonight. How long are we going to stick with this plan? Is this something we're going to flesh out?" And the answer would be, "I don't know."
Mm.
And it's like, if I feel like the company doesn't have a direction for me, and if the company doesn't care about my creative, then it's hard for me to get excited about it and contribute, because it's like, how am I supposed to take this ball and run with it if like you're not telling me where to run? You know, I get selfishly just go on the field and try to knock everybody over, but then I might just look like a big asshole.
Mm.
So that was kind of the conversation we had. Like, it was just, he said, like, for the first time we talked about Battle Riot, he's like, here's what we want to do with Battle Riot, and then here's how it would go into Chicago, and then here's how it would go into New York, and it was just like, oh wow, like, you've thought this through, and I haven't even agreed to anything. So it just goes to show there's a mental investment there.
Yeah. Um, I understand where you're coming from because it's not just a pro wrestling problem. I mean, people in their work, you know, trying to find work balance in general. It's like if you don't have the sort of same response or you don't have the same investment that the other side's putting into it, it's like, yeah, you're going to be down on yourself. You're not going to be into it as much as you could be if it was being reciprocated.
Yeah, I mean, I put it this way: the last normal person job, I should say, that I had was I was a butcher, and I would go into work at 6 a.m. I'd have a certain amount of stuff I had to get done, and I would get it done, and I could do that mindless. And
Mm.
at some point, my boss started talking to me like, "Hey, like, you're really a smart guy. Like, I kind of want to start training you on these other positions. Kind of want you to stay later. Maybe start training you to potentially move into management one day." And it was like, no, I'm wrestling, because that was a job that I could just go in, clock in, put my headphones on, do my job, and leave. And then the rest of the day, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to have text with anyone coming up with ideas. But like with pro wrestling, you can't do that. You can't clock in, zone out, go through the motions for 8 hours, and then be done. You have to be excited. You have to be interested. You have to have a fire lit inside of you, because like there's so many people doing this at such a high level. Like, how are you going to stand out? And
Mhm.
you're not going to stand out by going, okay, yeah, let's lock up and I'll give you a shoulder tackle and then I'll hit my comeback. And no, like, you have to be like, okay, here's what I want to get across in this segment. Like, I got this idea that I'm going to, you have to be excited about it. And if you're not, it's like, good luck.
Mhm. You're known for your physique, but if I may, if you put the butcher apron on with like some blood on it, you'd be even more intimidating. So just a future gimmick idea for you.
It's funny because when I worked at that job, I started as a barback, and it was like a hipster restaurant.
Mm.
So I'm wearing these super tight buttons bulging out, and this is when I had the long hair. I was much younger and prettier back then, so all the girls at the restaurant would flirt with me, and then of course came the day that I switched over to being the butcher, and I'd just be in the cooler all day. It was giant sweater and this big bloody apron and a cleaver in my hand. I'd walk out, and it was like nobody knew me anymore.
Yeah.
It's completely 180.
Like I said, pretty intimidating. So just imagine. I do want to talk about the match that you do have coming up. It's at Azteca Lucha. MLW is going to be at Cicero Stadium, coming back to Chicago. Uh, you're going to be facing Kojima. He's
Yeah,
a revered name in Japanese wrestling, former champion in MLW. Talk to me about getting a chance to get to face him now that he's kind of established himself in an American-based company. I mentioned, he's revered all over Japan, but what's it like getting a chance to work with him here in MLW?
it presents a very interesting dynamic, because you have this situation where at first thought you would have expected that we would have already had a wrestling match, and then like upon that second thought you realize it's never happened yet, because he was really returning to the company, and world champion when I was kind of on my way out. So we missed each other in that respect. But like you said, like he former multiple time champion, world renowned star. Um, it's definitely going to be a test for me, but I think it's going to be more of a test for him,
Mhm.
because as good as he is, Father Time waits for nobody, and Father Time has kicked my ass in the last couple of years. I'm only 34, so
Mhm.
I imagine he's got a couple more bruises, and I'm just going to be adding to that. So this is coming back at Battle Right was great. Getting the fan ovation was great. Staying in there, lasting for whatever, close to an hour or whatever it was, phenomenal. But now I'm in my first singles match, so uh, if I shit the bed, it sets a very bad precedent for what I'm bringing. Really taking this match very seriously.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. I know, you have your own history in MLW. Like I said, he's kind of establishing his name here. Uh, I know he's pretty popular online because of the Bread Club too. So I don't know if that adds anything for you, but
It just means I'm back ready.
you got to work with Obafemi in NXT when you were part of the TNA roster. I have to imagine that that was like a really big, maybe a bucket list item or really what you think is like one of the highlights of that run. What was like the biggest takeaway or benefit from that time, just as far as getting a chance to work in front of a different crowd, the NXT crowd? What did you think of the experience?
I mean that like you said, that was very much a highlight of the whole my whole time there. I was very privileged to get to do that. I hope nobody twists, my words and thinks I'm just this sour puss and hate TNA. You know, it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, but I was presented with some great opportunities, and I tried to capitalize. And that was definitely one of them. And it was so cool for me personally because a lot of people don't realize over the course of a decade, I have three tryouts with WWE, and you show up to these tryouts and they're just running you through drills, and you're just like, it's almost like a boot camp type scenario, where it's, you know, drop and give me 20, hit the ropes, do this, do that, and there's torturing you versus facility, and everyone's just shaking my hand. Oh, Hammer, so great to have you here. Everyone just being so welcoming, so professional, and such a cool experience. And then Oba, such a talented dude, but also, very mature and giving. And there was no point ever in both the my matches at NXT and both the days I spent there did I get an ounce of this guy's not even with our company. What's he doing here? Why should we this that? All I got was respect. All I got was welcoming. And for all these coaches to be familiar with me together in matches, the coaches know my moves, and it's just like, oh wow, like this is just like I remember when I was in this building, just like scared to even talk, and
Mm.
now it's just like how kind of just shows the evolution of my career, and it sums it up in a great experience, top to bottom.
All right. What do you want people to talk about more? There's a lot of stuff that comes up from your career as far as, you know, accolades, different matches you've had, anything that you think deserves a little bit more love or just something you might be interested in talking about more compared to the stuff that gets mentioned first?
Um, I guess like the easiest way to talk about stuff is like everyone always talks about like your best matches, and everyone always talked about me and Fatu, and they always talk about that first match we had. And I think our second match was the best one. But beyond that, in MLW, I did a lot of cool stuff that people don't talk about. Like I had a match with MJF that was really good. Um, I had a match with T Hawk that was really good. My probably favorite MLW match, probably my favorite wrestling match I've ever had. I think it was the best match I ever had. Was me versus David Richards, and it's like nobody brings that up whenever they. they talk about the history of with that company, but that's a really good one. And then beyond that, I guess just my entire run in Pro Wrestling Noah was a cool highlight because I was just like that was just 6 weeks of me being 100% wrestling. That's all I did. I woke up, I ate, I trained, trained again, wrestled, got on a bus, wrestled, got on a bus, wrestled, got like, and for 6 weeks, it's all I did. That and watch an obnoxious amount of Netflix. But that was that's something that to this day, like I'm still very proud of.
As you should be. May 10th, Azteca Lucha is the next show for MLW and co-promoted with CMLL. And then a couple more dates already in the works. I know MLW is going to be in New York in June, Dallas in September. Anything else you want to plug or promote before I close this out?
I mean, you nailed some. You nailed it. They have some dates coming up. The This show is sold out. The last show was sold out. If you want to go to a show that's coming near you, don't be the guy who waits till the week up to buy your tickets because you're probably not going to get them. So I would suggest getting them as soon as possible. Besides that, you can follow me at Alex Hammerstone or Alexander Hammerstone on all the apps. Keep up with my schedule with MLW, outside of MLW. Um, and all my craziness and whatever activities and hijinks I decide to come up with.